Imagine a world 400,000 years ago where massive glaciers stretched across northern Europe, where cave lions roamed the landscape, and where a remarkable species of humans thrived in conditions that would challenge even our most advanced modern survival experts. Not modern humans like us, but a species so perfectly adapted to their harsh world that they would dominate Europe and parts of Asia for over 300,000 years. Their story isn't just about survival, it's about mastery, innovation, and a level of sophistication that challenges everything we thought we knew about our ancient relatives. Meet the Neanderthals. If you're using this to fall asleep, that's literally why I make these. So subscribe maybe and tell me where you are and what time. I check comments and it's like Stockholm at snowfall, Sydney at sunrise, all at once. What makes the Neanderthal story so compelling? They lived through multiple ice ages, created the first known jewelry, were master hunters who could take down woolly mammoths, and developed complex burial rituals that suggest they contemplated life and death in ways surprisingly similar to us. For over 300,000 years, that's roughly the same time span our own species has existed, Neanderthals ruled the frozen landscapes of Ice Age Europe with a sophistication that modern archaeology is only beginning to understand. I'm about to take you on a journey through time to discover how these extraordinary humans lived, what they looked like, how they thought, and why their story fundamentally changes our understanding of human intelligence and culture. You'll discover why many scientists now consider Neanderthals not primitive cave dwellers, but master craftspeople, caring family members, and innovative problem solvers whose abilities in some areas may have surpassed our own ancestors. Here's something that will blow your mind. Recent DNA analysis has revealed that if you're of European or Asian descent, you carry Neanderthal genes in your body right now. Between 1 and 4% of your genome comes directly from these ancient humans, meaning they didn't simply disappear, they became part of us. Their genetic legacy influences everything from your immune system to your hair texture, from your tolerance to cold, to your risk for certain diseases. Let's put their incredible journey in perspective. Neanderthals first appeared around 400,000 years ago and survived until approximately 28,000 years ago. The last known Neanderthal populations lived in caves along the coast of what is now Gibraltar, where they maintained their distinctive culture even as modern humans spread across Europe. This naturally raises a fascinating question that has captivated researchers for decades. What happened when these two human species finally met? We know that Homo sapiens arrived in Europe around 45,000 years ago, meaning there was a significant overlap period, potentially 15,000 years, when Neanderthals and modern humans shared the same landscapes. Recent archaeological discoveries have revealed tantalizing evidence of this coexistence. At Grotte du Rhin in France, archaeologists found Neanderthal fossils alongside sophisticated jewelry and tools that seem to show influence from modern human techniques. But here's where the story takes an unexpected twist. Genetic analysis has revealed something remarkable about these encounters between our species. The interbreeding wasn't just a rare occurrence. It happened multiple times across different regions over thousands of years. Modern humans didn't simply replace Neanderthals. They absorbed them. Every time you look in the mirror, you're potentially seeing features influenced by Neanderthal ancestry that stretches back tens of thousands of years. The first Neanderthal fossil was discovered in 1856 in the Neander Valley near Dusseldorf, Germany. The discovery caused an immediate sensation and controversy. The thick skull, prominent brow ridges, and robust build seemed so different from modern humans that many scientists initially dismissed it as a diseased individual or a primitive evolutionary dead end. Some Victorian-era researchers even suggested it was simply a bow-legged Cossack soldier who had suffered from rickets. It took decades of additional discoveries across Europe, from Belgium to Croatia, from Spain to Russia, to confirm that these were indeed the remains of an entire human species that had thrived across the continent. Each new find painted a more complete picture of Neanderthals as sophisticated hunters, tool makers, and social beings who had conquered some of the most challenging environments on Earth. One of the most remarkable things about Neanderthals was their physical adaptation to Ice Age conditions. They were built like Arctic specialists. Their bodies were shorter and more compact than modern humans, with an average height of about 5 feet 5 inches for males and 5 feet 1 inch for females. But what they lacked in height, they made up for in sheer power. Their bones were incredibly thick and robust, their muscle attachment points massive, suggesting physical strength that would dwarf even the most athletic modern humans. Their skulls tell an equally fascinating story. Neanderthal brain capacity averaged 1,520 cubic centimeters, actually larger than the average modern human brain of 1,400 cubic centimeters. This wasn't just raw size. Recent studies using advanced imaging techniques have revealed that Neanderthal brains had enlarged areas associated with visual processing and motor control, possibly reflecting their adaptation to hunting in low-light conditions and their need for precise manual dexterity in crafting sophisticated tools. But perhaps their most distinctive feature was their face. Neanderthals had massive nasal cavities, about 29% larger than modern humans. This wasn't just coincidence. These enlarged nasal passages served as biological heating systems, warming and humidifying the frigid air they breathed during Ice Age winters. The prominent brow ridges and robust facial structure weren't signs of primitiveness. They were engineering solutions to environmental challenges. Recent analysis of Neanderthal DNA has revealed something astonishing about their appearance. We now know that many Neanderthals had pale skin, red hair, and even blue eyes, features we typically associate with modern Europeans. The MC1R gene variants found in Neanderthal remains are responsible for red hair and fair skin, adaptations that would have been crucial for vitamin D synthesis in the low-light conditions of northern Europe. This genetic evidence has revolutionized our understanding of human pigmentation. The pale skin common in modern Europeans isn't just a recent adaptation. Its roots stretch back hundreds of thousands of years to our Neanderthal relatives who pioneered these survival strategies in Europe's harsh climate. Neanderthals exhibited notable sexual dimorphism, with males being significantly larger and more robust than females. But recent discoveries suggest their social structure was more complex than this might imply. At the El Sidrón cave in Spain, researchers found the remains of 12 Neanderthals from what appears to be an extended family group that lived together and died together around 49,000 years ago. Genetic analysis of these remains revealed fascinating details about Neanderthal society. The group included adult males, adult females, adolescents, and children. Remarkably, the adult males in the group were all related to each other, while the adult females came from different genetic lineages. This suggests a social system where males stayed with their birth group while females moved between groups, a pattern called patrilocal residence that requires complex social rules and kinship recognition. This same site provided another crucial insight into Neanderthal life. The bones showed cut marks consistent with defleshing, and they had been cracked open to extract marrow. Initially, researchers thought this might indicate cannibalism, but the pattern of cuts and breaks more likely suggests ritual treatment of the dead. The careful processing of the remains might have been part of a complex burial practice where bodies were cleaned before final interment. Evidence for Neanderthal burial practices has been found across Europe, from Shanidar Cave in Iraq to La Ferracie in France. These aren't simple disposals of bodies. They show clear signs of intentional burial with grave goods, careful positioning of the remains, and selection of special locations. At Shanidar, archaeologist Ralph Solecki found what appeared to be flower pollen around Neanderthal burials, suggesting they may have placed flowers with their dead. While some researchers have questioned whether the pollen represents intentional placement or natural accumulation, the broader pattern of Neanderthal burial behavior is undeniable. They were the first human species to regularly bury their dead, a practice that suggests not only social complexity, but also abstract thinking about death, memory, and possibly even concepts of an afterlife. When we examine the fossil record, it becomes clear that Neanderthals weren't just surviving in Ice Age Europe, they were thriving. Their robust build and powerful physique weren't signs of primitive brutishness, but sophisticated adaptations to their environment. These were precision-engineered humans, built for endurance, strength, and survival in conditions that would challenge even our most advanced modern technology. But their physical adaptations were just the beginning of what made Neanderthals so remarkably successful. In our next segment, we'll explore one of their most impressive achievements, their mastery of fire and their development of the most sophisticated stone tool technology the world had ever seen. We'll discover how these innovations allowed them to hunt massive Ice Age mammals, survive in caves during the harshest winters, and create the first known adhesives and composite tools in human history. As we delve deeper into the Neanderthal world, we'll uncover evidence of their surprising creativity, their complex social relationships, and their remarkable ability to adapt and innovate across hundreds of thousands of years of dramatic climate change. Stay with me as we continue this incredible journey into the lives of our most successful ancient relatives in Ice Age Europe. The mastery of fire represents one of humanity's most crucial technological breakthroughs, and Neanderthals took this technology to extraordinary levels of sophistication. While earlier human species may have opportunistically used naturally occurring fires, Neanderthals developed systematic fire-making techniques that allowed them to survive in environments where fire wasn't just useful, it was absolutely essential for survival. Archaeological sites across Europe show evidence of Neanderthal fire use dating back over 300,000 years. But these weren't simple campfires. At sites like Beech's Pit in England and Schöningen in Germany, researchers have found elaborate hearth structures with carefully arranged stones, ash deposits several feet thick, and evidence of controlled burning that suggests Neanderthals understood fire management at a level comparable to modern hunter-gatherers. Perhaps most remarkably, Neanderthals were creating the world's first synthetic materials. At sites in Italy and Germany, archaeologists have discovered lumps of birch tar that Neanderthals produced by heating birch bark in oxygen-poor conditions, essentially creating the first known adhesives. This process requires temperatures of over 400 degrees Celsius and precise control of airflow, knowledge that could only come from generations of experimentation and accumulated expertise. They used these tar adhesives to create composite tools, hafting stone blades to wooden handles with a sophistication that wouldn't look out of place in a modern workshop. Some of these hafted tools required multiple components: stone blade, wooden handle, binding materials, and adhesive, assembled with engineering precision that speaks to remarkable planning abilities and technical knowledge. But Neanderthal tool technology went far beyond simple stone knapping. They were master craftsmen who developed what archaeologists call the Levallois technique, a sophisticated method of stone tool preparation that requires visualizing the final tool shape before beginning the knapping process. This isn't random chipping at rocks. It's precision manufacturing that demonstrates advanced spatial reasoning and long-term planning abilities. Recent experimental archaeology has revealed just how sophisticated these techniques were. Modern researchers, even with detailed knowledge of Neanderthal methods, require months of practice to achieve the level of consistency and precision evident in Neanderthal assemblages. These weren't crude implements made by primitive minds. They were precision instruments crafted by master technicians who understood materials science at an intuitive level. The standardization of Neanderthal tools across vast geographic areas and time periods suggests something even more remarkable: cultural transmission systems that allowed technical knowledge to spread between groups and persist across generations. Sites separated by hundreds of miles and thousands of years show remarkably similar tool technologies, indicating that Neanderthals had developed effective methods for teaching complex skills and maintaining cultural traditions. This cultural consistency extended to their hunting strategies. Neanderthals were apex predators who regularly brought down some of the largest and most dangerous animals of the Ice Age. Fossil sites across Europe contain the remains of woolly mammoths, woolly rhinoceros, cave bears, and massive bison, all killed and butchered by Neanderthal hunters. At Leringen in Germany, researchers found a 125,000-year-old wooden spear embedded between the ribs of a straight-tusked elephant, direct evidence of Neanderthals hunting animals that weighed over 10 tons. This wasn't scavenging. This was coordinated big-game hunting that required sophisticated weapons, detailed knowledge of animal behavior, and group coordination that could only come from complex communication systems. The Schöningen spears, dating to around 300,000 years ago, represent some of the oldest known wooden hunting implements. These weren't crude pointed sticks. They were precisely balanced, throwing spears with carefully shaped tips and weight distributions optimized for accuracy and penetration. Modern experiments have shown that these spears could be thrown accurately at distances of up to 20 meters, making them lethal hunting weapons in skilled hands. But perhaps the most impressive evidence of Neanderthal hunting prowess comes from sites like Moran in France, where researchers found the remains of hundreds of bison that had been driven off cliffs and systematically butchered. This type of mass hunting requires detailed environmental knowledge, sophisticated planning, and the ability to coordinate the actions of multiple hunting parties across extended periods. The butchering sites themselves tell remarkable stories about Neanderthal behavior. At Combe Grenal in France, researchers found evidence that Neanderthals were practicing selective hunting, targeting prime-age animals, while avoiding very young or very old individuals. This suggests they understood population dynamics and were managing their prey species sustainably, a level of ecological thinking that wasn't recognized in modern humans until the development of conservation biology. Evidence from multiple sites indicates that Neanderthals were also processing hides with remarkable skill. Stone scrapers found at Neanderthal sites show wear patterns consistent with hide preparation, and some sites contain specialized tools that were clearly designed for leatherworking. Given the harsh climate of Ice Age Europe, the ability to create warm, waterproof clothing would have been essential for survival. Recent experiments attempting to replicate Neanderthal hide processing techniques have revealed the sophistication of their methods, creating clothing capable of protecting against Ice Age conditions requires not just scraping hides clean, but treating them with brain tannins, smoking them for preservation, and sewing them with precision. Each of these steps requires specialized tools and accumulated knowledge that suggests Neanderthal clothing technology was far more advanced than previously assumed. Some researchers have speculated that Neanderthal clothing might have included fitted garments tailored for specific weather conditions. Unlike the loose-fitting skin wraps often depicted in popular media, effective cold weather clothing requires precise fitting to minimize heat loss while allowing for mobility. The sophistication of Neanderthal tool technology suggests they were certainly capable of such precision tailoring. Beyond their technological achievements, recent discoveries have revealed unexpected aspects of Neanderthal behavior that challenge our understanding of the origins of human culture. At sites like Cueva de los Aviones in Spain, researchers have found pierced shells, colored pigments, and what appear to be cosmetic preparations dating back over 115,000 years, long before modern humans arrived in Europe. These weren't utilitarian objects. The shells had been carefully selected for their aesthetic properties, perforated for hanging, and in some cases, decorated with red and yellow ochre. This represents the earliest known evidence of symbolic behavior in human evolution, suggesting that Neanderthals possessed the cognitive capacity for abstract thought, personal adornment, and possibly even artistic expression. The pigment evidence is particularly intriguing. At over 50 Neanderthal sites across Europe, researchers have found processed ochre, manganese oxides, and other coloring materials. Chemical analysis reveals that these pigments were often heated to enhance their colors and mixed with other substances to create paints and dyes. But what were they painting? Unfortunately, organic materials rarely survive in the archaeological record, so we may never know the full extent of Neanderthal artistic expression. However, recent discoveries of painted cave walls in Spain, dating to over 64,000 years ago, have been attributed to Neanderthals. If confirmed, these would represent the oldest known cave art in the world, predating similar art by modern humans by over 20,000 years. The social implications of symbolic behavior are profound. The creation and use of jewelry, pigments, and possibly art requires not only individual cognitive sophistication, but also shared cultural meanings that can be transmitted between group members. This suggests that Neanderthals possessed complex communication systems capable of conveying abstract concepts, a crucial step toward the development of symbolic language. Recent analysis of Neanderthal vocal anatomy has revealed another surprising finding. They possessed the physical capacity for speech that was remarkably similar to modern humans. The FOXP2 gene, crucial for language development, has been found in Neanderthal DNA in a form nearly identical to that found in modern humans. Their hyoid bones, which anchor the tongue and are crucial for speech production, were also virtually identical to ours. But did they actually use this capacity for complex language? While we may never know for certain, the evidence is increasingly suggestive. The complexity of their tool technology, their ability to coordinate group hunts, their care for injured group members, and their symbolic behaviors all point to communication systems far more sophisticated than simple gesture and basic vocalizations. Some researchers have proposed that Neanderthal language might have been primarily musical in nature. Analysis of Neanderthal inner ear anatomy suggests they were particularly sensitive to the frequency ranges associated with music and tonal communication. This proto-language might have combined melodic elements with basic vocabulary to convey complex information, a system that could have been particularly effective for group coordination during hunts or for maintaining social bonds within communities. The question of Neanderthal intelligence has been hotly debated for decades, but recent evidence points to cognitive abilities that in some areas may have equaled or even exceeded those of contemporary modern humans. Their brain size was not only larger on average than ours, but was organized in ways that suggest different cognitive strengths. Advanced imaging of Neanderthal skulls reveals that they had enlarged visual cortices and cerebellums, brain regions associated with visual processing, spatial awareness, and fine motor control. This neurological organization might have given them advantages in activities requiring precise hand-eye coordination, three-dimensional thinking, and visual memory. Skills that would have been crucial for their sophisticated tool-making and their success as hunters in complex, natural environments. Recent studies have also revealed that Neanderthals possessed remarkable spatial memory abilities. Archaeological sites show evidence of complex caching behavior, where tools and food were hidden in multiple locations and retrieved after extended periods. This requires not just memory for locations, but also temporal planning abilities and an understanding of future needs, cognitive capacities that suggest sophisticated mental time travel abilities. Perhaps most remarkably, evidence from sites like El Sidrón in Spain suggests that Neanderthals possessed medical knowledge that enabled them to care for seriously injured or disabled group members. One individual found at this site had lost the use of his right arm, had extensive dental problems, and would have been unable to hunt or gather food effectively. Yet he survived to adulthood, indicating that his community supported and cared for him, despite his inability to contribute to group survival. This evidence of compassionate care extends beyond single cases. Multiple Neanderthal sites contain individuals who survived serious injuries, diseases, or disabilities that would have required extended care from other group members. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, researchers found the remains of a Neanderthal male who had been partially blinded, had a withered arm, and walked with a severe limp, yet lived to be around 40 years old in a time when most individuals died much younger. These cases suggest that Neanderthal society was characterized by levels of empathy, cooperation, and social support that challenge stereotypes about primitive, survival-focused societies. The care for vulnerable group members indicates complex social values that prioritized group cohesion and individual welfare over simple economic utility. But what about their relationship with the environment? Recent isotope analysis of Neanderthal bones has revealed dietary patterns that suggest remarkable ecological knowledge. Neanderthal groups in different regions showed distinct seasonal dietary shifts that align perfectly with the availability of local resources. They weren't just opportunistic hunters. They were strategic resource managers who understood the timing of animal migrations, the seasonal availability of plant foods, and the optimal times for hunting different species. At coastal sites in Gibraltar and Italy, Neanderthal remains show evidence of marine resource exploitation that rivals that of specialized coastal peoples. They were diving for shellfish, catching fish, and even hunting marine mammals like seals and dolphins. This maritime adaptation required specialized knowledge of tides, animal behavior, and potentially even boat-building technology. The ability to adapt to such diverse environments, from Arctic tundra to Mediterranean coasts, from dense forests to open grasslands, demonstrates cognitive flexibility that contradicts older notions of Neanderthals as rigid, specialized, Ice Age hunters. They were generalists capable of developing new survival strategies as their environment changed, a capacity that served them well through multiple glacial cycles over hundreds of thousands of years. Recent discoveries have also revealed unexpected evidence of long-distance travel and resource exchange among Neanderthal groups. Stone tools found at sites in France have been traced to raw material sources over 100 kilometers away, suggesting either long-distance travel by individual groups or trade networks between different communities. This evidence of resource exchange has profound implications for our understanding of Neanderthal society. Trade networks require not only the ability to travel long distances, but also systems for establishing relationships with other groups, methods for negotiating exchanges, and possibly even standardized value systems for different materials. These are hallmarks of complex social organization that extend far beyond simple family groups. The sophistication of Neanderthal society becomes even more apparent when we consider their apparent understanding of medicinal plants. At several sites, researchers have found evidence that Neanderthals were using specific plants with known therapeutic properties. Dental calculus analysis from Neanderthal teeth has revealed traces of yarrow and chamomile, plants with anti-inflammatory and pain-relieving properties, but little nutritional value. More remarkably, at El Sidron, researchers found evidence that Neanderthals had consumed poplar bark, which contains salicin, a natural painkiller related to aspirin. The individual who consumed this plant was suffering from dental abscesses and would have been in considerable pain. The use of natural painkillers suggests not only knowledge of plant medicines, but also an understanding of cause and effect relationships between specific plants and their therapeutic effects. This medicinal knowledge would have been crucial for group survival. The ability to treat injuries, infections, and illnesses would have increased survival rates and allowed groups to maintain larger populations. It also suggests systems for knowledge transmission that allowed medicinal information to be passed down through generations and shared between group members. As we delve deeper into the archaeological record, the picture that emerges is of a species that was not only surviving in challenging environments, but actively mastering them. Neanderthals weren't primitive ancestors struggling with basic survival. They were sophisticated humans with complex cultures, advanced technologies, and cognitive abilities that enabled them to thrive in some of the most challenging environments on Earth. In our next segment, we'll explore one of the most intriguing questions in human evolution. What happened when Neanderthals and modern humans finally encountered each other? We'll discover evidence of interbreeding, cultural exchange, and the complex process by which these two human species merged into one. We'll also examine the latest theories about why Neanderthals eventually disappeared and how their genetic legacy continues to influence human populations today. The story of what happened when Neanderthals and modern humans finally met represents one of the most fascinating and complex chapters in human evolution. For over 15,000 years, a span longer than all of recorded human history, these two human species shared the same landscapes, competed for the same resources, and ultimately merged their genetic destinies in ways we're only now beginning to understand. The first encounters likely occurred around 45,000 years ago as modern humans began expanding into Europe from Africa and the Middle East. These weren't empty lands. They were the ancestral territories of Neanderthals, who had been perfecting their survival strategies for hundreds of thousands of years. The meeting of these two human species would have been one of the most significant events in the history of our planet. Yet almost no direct archaeological evidence of these first encounters survives. What we do know comes from an unexpected source: our own DNA. Advanced genetic analysis has revealed that virtually every person of non-African ancestry carries between 1 and 4% Neanderthal DNA in their genome. This isn't ancient degraded genetic material, it's functional DNA that continues to influence human traits today, from immune system responses to physical characteristics to susceptibility to certain diseases. But the story told by genetics is far more complex than simple interbreeding. Recent analysis suggests that the genetic exchange between Neanderthals and modern humans happened multiple times in different locations over thousands of years. There wasn't a single moment of species merger. There was a complex process of encounter, interbreeding, separation, and reunion that played out across the entire continent of Europe. The most detailed genetic evidence comes from a remarkable discovery, a fossil found in a Romanian cave that dates to around 40,000 years ago. This individual, known as OAS1, has the highest percentage of Neanderthal DNA ever found in an early modern human, between 6 and 9% of the total genome. Even more remarkably, the Neanderthal DNA segments in this individual are unusually long, suggesting that one of his great-great-great-grandparents was actually a Neanderthal. This finding revolutionized our understanding of human evolution. It proved that interbreeding between Neanderthals and modern humans wasn't just possible, it was happening regularly enough to produce individuals who were essentially hybrids between the two species. These weren't isolated incidents, but part of a broader pattern of genetic exchange that shaped the evolution of both populations. Archaeological evidence for this interaction comes from sites across Europe where Neanderthal and modern human artifacts are found in the same layers, sometimes showing apparent technological exchange. At Châtel-Perron in France, Neanderthal sites contain sophisticated blade tools and ornaments that appear to show influence from modern human techniques. Similarly, some early modern human sites contain tools made using traditional Neanderthal methods. This technological exchange suggests that the relationship between these species wasn't simply one of competition and replacement. Instead, there appears to have been a complex process of cultural interaction, learning, and adaptation that benefited both groups. Neanderthals may have learned new technologies from modern humans, while modern humans may have acquired crucial survival knowledge from Neanderthal groups who had been adapting to European conditions for hundreds of thousands of years. Recent analysis of ancient DNA has revealed another surprising aspect of this interaction. The genetic exchange wasn't unidirectional. While we've long known that modern humans carry Neanderthal DNA, new analysis suggests that some Neanderthal populations also acquired genetic material from modern humans. This bidirectional gene flow indicates prolonged contact between the species, with individuals moving between groups and establishing relationships across species boundaries. The implications of this genetic exchange extend far beyond simple ancestry. Many of the Neanderthal genetic variants that persist in modern human populations appear to have been maintained by natural selection because they provided survival advantages. Some Neanderthal genetic variants enhance immune system function, particularly resistance to viruses and bacteria. Others influence skin and hair characteristics that may have been advantageous in northern climates. Recent studies have identified specific Neanderthal genetic contributions that continue to influence modern human health. Some variants affect blood clotting mechanisms, potentially reducing bleeding risk, but increasing susceptibility to stroke. Others influence metabolism and fat storage, possibly reflecting adaptations to the feast or famine cycles of Ice Age hunter-gatherer life. But perhaps, most intriguingly, some Neanderthal genetic variants appear to influence neurological function. Variants affecting brain development, neurotransmitter production, and neural connectivity have been identified in modern human populations. suggesting that Neanderthal cognitive adaptations may continue to influence human mental capabilities today. However, the story of Neanderthal-modern human interaction wasn't entirely positive. Some evidence suggests that genetic incompatibilities between the species may have led to reduced fertility in hybrid offspring, particularly males. This hybrid breakdown effect might explain why Neanderthal genetic contributions are unevenly distributed across the modern human genome, with some regions showing clear evidence of selection against Neanderthal variants. Recent analysis has revealed that Neanderthal genetic contributions are particularly reduced on the X chromosome and in genes affecting male fertility. This pattern is consistent with Haldane's rule, which predicts that when two species hybridize, the heterogametic sex, males in mammals, will show greater fertility problems. This genetic evidence suggests that while interbreeding was possible and occurred regularly, there were also biological barriers that limited the extent of genetic exchange. The process by which Neanderthals eventually disappeared remains one of the most debated questions in paleoanthropology. For decades, researchers proposed simple replacement models where superior modern human technology and cognitive abilities led to Neanderthal extinction. However, the evidence for interbreeding has complicated this narrative considerably. Current theories suggest that Neanderthal disappearance was likely due to a combination of factors rather than any single cause. Climate change played a significant role, as the period around 40,000 years ago was characterized by rapid and extreme climate fluctuations that would have challenged any human population. These climate changes may have fragmented Neanderthal populations into small, isolated groups that were more vulnerable to extinction. Competition with modern humans almost certainly played a role as well, but this competition may have been more subtle than direct warfare or resource displacement. Modern humans appear to have had slightly more efficient hunting technologies and may have been more effective at exploiting certain types of resources. Over time, these small advantages could have led to larger population sizes for modern human groups, gradually overwhelming smaller Neanderthal populations through simple demographic pressure. Disease transmission may have been another crucial factor. When two long-separated populations come into contact, they often exchange pathogens to which the other group has no immunity. Modern humans arriving from Africa may have carried diseases that were devastating to Neanderthal populations who had been isolated in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. Similarly, Neanderthals may have carried European diseases that affected modern human populations. But the larger modern human population sizes may have allowed them to recover more effectively from epidemic outbreaks. Recent studies have also suggested that cultural factors may have played a role in Neanderthal disappearance. Some researchers have proposed that modern humans had more efficient systems for information sharing and technological innovation, allowing them to adapt more rapidly to changing conditions. Others have suggested that modern human social networks were larger and more complex, providing advantages in resource sharing and risk management. However, it's important to recognize that Neanderthal extinction may be somewhat misleading. The genetic evidence clearly shows that Neanderthals didn't simply disappear. They were absorbed into the modern human population through interbreeding. In a very real sense, Neanderthals never went extinct. They became part of us. This absorption process appears to have been geographically variable. In some regions, the transition from Neanderthal to modern human populations appears to have been gradual, with mixed populations persisting for thousands of years. In other areas, the replacement seems to have been more rapid, possibly reflecting different local conditions or interaction patterns. The last known Neanderthal populations survived in isolated refugia across southern Europe, from Gibraltar in the west to the Caucasus in the east. These populations appear to have maintained traditional Neanderthal technologies and lifestyles, even as modern human populations expanded across most of Europe. The final holdouts in Gibraltar may have survived until as recently as 28,000 years ago, making them the last representatives of a lineage that had dominated Europe for over 300,000 years. Recent analysis of these final Neanderthal populations has revealed signs of genetic stress that may have contributed to their eventual disappearance. Small population sizes and isolation appear to have led to inbreeding effects that reduced fertility and increased susceptibility to disease. These populations may have been caught in an extinction vortex where declining numbers led to genetic problems that further reduced their viability. Yet, even as these final Neanderthal populations disappeared, their genetic legacy was already secured in the modern human populations that had absorbed earlier Neanderthal groups. The DNA variants that had evolved over hundreds of thousands of years in Ice Age Europe continued to flow through modern human populations, influencing everything from immune function to physical appearance to cognitive traits. The story of Neanderthal-modern human interaction challenges traditional concepts of species boundaries and evolutionary replacement. Rather than viewing human evolution as a linear progression from primitive to advanced forms, the evidence suggests a complex network of human populations that diverged, developed distinct adaptations, and then came back together in ways that enriched the genetic and cultural heritage of our species. Modern humans didn't simply replace Neanderthals through superior abilities. They merged with them, creating hybrid populations that combined the best adaptations from both lineages. The result is a modern human species that carries within its genome hundreds of thousands of years of European evolutionary history, preserved in the DNA sequences that originated in Neanderthal populations. As we continue to analyze ancient DNA and archaeological evidence, our understanding of this merger process continues to evolve. Recent discoveries have identified additional archaic human populations, like the Denisovans, who also contributed genetic material to modern human populations. The picture that emerges is of human evolution as a complex web of divergence and convergence, with multiple human lineages contributing to the genetic and cultural heritage of our species. The Neanderthal legacy extends beyond genetics into the realm of culture and technology. Many of the innovations we associate with modern human behavior, sophisticated tool technologies, symbolic expression, care for the disabled, complex social organization, were pioneered or independently developed by Neanderthals. Their contributions to human cultural evolution may be as significant as their genetic contributions. Recent archaeological discoveries continue to expand our appreciation of Neanderthal capabilities. Sites like Bruniquel Cave in France contain structures made of broken stalagmites, arranged in complex patterns, dating to over 176,000 years ago. These constructions, built deep underground far from natural light, suggest planning abilities, group coordination, and possibly even symbolic behaviors that challenge our understanding of Neanderthal cognition. Other recent finds include evidence of Neanderthal textile production, with twisted fibers found at several sites suggesting they were creating rope, nets, or even woven cloth. The discovery of tar production for hafting tools demonstrates mastery of complex chemical processes. Evidence of feather collection and modification suggests they may have been creating decorative objects or even primitive forms of clothing decoration. Each new discovery adds to our appreciation of Neanderthal sophistication and raises questions about the uniqueness of modern human cognitive abilities. Rather than being the first humans to develop symbolic thought, complex technology, and sophisticated social organization, we may simply be the inheritors of innovations pioneered by our Neanderthal relatives hundreds of thousands of years ago. The continuing influence of Neanderthal genetics in modern human populations provides a unique window into the practical effects of this ancient merger. Recent studies have identified Neanderthal genetic variants that influence everything from pain sensitivity to circadian rhythms to immune responses. Some variants provide resistance to certain diseases while increasing susceptibility to others, reflecting the complex trade-offs that characterized Neanderthal adaptations to Ice Age environments. Particularly intriguing are Neanderthal genetic contributions that affect cognitive function. While the effects are subtle and complex, some studies have suggested that certain Neanderthal variants may influence spatial reasoning abilities, visual processing, and even aspects of social cognition. These findings hint at the possibility that different human populations today may carry distinct cognitive strengths that reflect